In this video, we're going to discuss how to use multiple geoms, as well as the difference between global and local in GGPlot. By the end of this video, you'll be able to make this plot. Sometimes, when making plots, we want to include several variables within our plot, or overlap different plots on top of one another. That is when we use multiple geoms. To begin, let's load our libraries. We can load GGPlot by loading the GGPlot2 library on its own or loading the tidyverse package. Here, I'm going to use the tidyverse package. For this exercise, we're going to use an example dataset that is part of the GGPlot package called Midwest that contains population information for individual counties in Midwestern states. Let's load the Midwest dataset as follows. If we glimpse at our data, we can see that it's composed of 28 variables. I would like to visualize the area of each county in the different states represented in this dataset. Let's use GGPlot to find out. Let's start with one simple plot, a jitter plot. Geom jitter is like geom point, except the jitter plot does not allow points to be plotted over top of one another, allowing us to see all of the data points. So to make a jitter plot, we will run this code. Now we have a graph showing the area of all the counties in these states. I want to add something to this graph to help us visualize the distributions more easily. How about a box plot? Let's go ahead and add the box plot geom to our code. To add a second geom to our graph, we simply use the plus symbol and type in our second geom. So now our graph looks familiar, but with a new element. Now we have box plots overlaid on our geom jitter plot that help us visualize the distribution of county areas for each state. So adding a second geom was easy, but also added a nice layer of information to our graph. One important note to keep in mind is the order of your geoms matter. If we were to run the same code, but enter our box plot as the first geom and our jitter as the second geom, we would have a very difficult time seeing our box plots, because R would plot the box plots first and then overlay the points on top. Now that we know how to use multiple geoms at once, we can start to think about how we set our aesthetic values. In the graph we just made, we specified our X and Y values within the aesthetics of each geom. However, we could simplify our code by specifying these values globally. So what does that mean? To set globally means that we're going to map our aesthetics within the first GGPlot line. This is what the code would look like for our graph. If we set these aesthetics globally, these are mappings inherited by the following geoms. For our graph, that means that both the geom jitter and geom box plot know to graph state and area. With this, we can also set mappings locally or within the geom function. Sticking with our same graph, let's add a new aesthetic to our box plot geom to help our box plot stand out. Let's try color. To set our color mapping, we will also need to decide which variable should be used to map color. One simple way we can do that with our box plot is by coloring by state. Let's add that to our code. When we run this, we see our points in the geom jitter are all still black. However, now our box plots are all different colors. For fun, let's compare this with what the graph would look like if we set this aesthetic globally. As you may have expected, now, along with our box plots, all of our points are colored based on state. So now you can use multiple geoms with global and local mappings.